Hello, and welcome to the WWIA podcast. We're honored to have you join us in our mission to bring honor, connection, and healing to America's combat-wounded Purple Heart heroes. If this is your first time listening to this podcast, we welcome you. If you're a returning listener, thanks for coming back. Please be sure to tell others about our podcast and leave us a review if you're enjoying what you're hearing. Today, WWIA Founder and CEO John McDaniel welcomes an outstanding Purple Heart hero, WWIA guide, and long-standing friend of the Foundation to the podcast as Mr. Derek Duplisea joins us. Derek is originally from Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada, but was born in the USA. Derek served a total of 5 years with the 1st Battalion, Royal New Brunswick Regiment as an infantryman, leaving the Canadian Armed Forces as a master corporal before enlisting in the U.S. Army. During his second tour in Iraq, Derek was leading a patrol with 2nd Platoon Able Troop, 1st Squadron, 32nd Cavalry Regiment, when his unit was hit by a female suicide bomber and heavy small arms fire. The blast detonated within feet of the dismounted members of the platoon, severely wounding Derek and 3 of his soldiers. Derek spent 2 years recovering from his wounds before medically retiring from the Army. Derek has been a WWIA associate since 2010 and leads events all over the USA and Canada, and graduated from the inaugural WWIA Guide School in 2016. He's married to his Canadian sweetheart, Andrea, and has 4 wonderful children. Derek loves to spend his free time traveling, hiking, camping, hunting, and fishing with friends and family. He also holds a BS in Criminal Justice from Troy University and an MBA from the University of Phoenix. He's worked in the mental health profession for several years as a manager at the Aristook Mental Health Center on their Adult Crisis Stabilization Unit in Calais, Maine. This is a fantastic episode that we can't wait for you to hear, so let's join the conversation with John and Derek now.
Hi, I'm John McDaniel, founder and CEO of the Wounded Warriors in Action Foundation, and this is our podcast, Honor, Connect, Heal. So today I have with me a great American who I've known for maybe coming up on close to 20 years, I guess I would say. We were chatting in the pre-station here, and I think it's been about 20 years. Great American, combat wounded veteran, 19 Delta Cavalry Scout, formerly, achieved the rank of Sergeant First Class, has a Purple Heart, and I'm sure a bunch of other scary medals that go along with that. But Derek Duplisea, thank you for being here on the program, and welcome.
Thank you, John.
Yeah. So we were chatting in the pre-station. He said, "Okay, geez, when did we first meet?" And why don't you kick off with that story, your memory? We're taking you back to 2009.
Actually, it was 2008.
Okay. Oh, yep. 8. Okay, even better. Yes. 2008. Start there. Tell us from your perspective how that unfolded.
I believe I had just retired out of Fort Campbell, and my old squadron commander, Art Kandarian, gave me a call. And he said, "Hey, how do you feel about doing some hunting and fishing?" And I hadn't done it in years, especially after I was hurt. I hadn't really picked up a fishing pole or a rifle to go hunting or fishing. And I said, "Sure." He said, "I got an old ranger buddy that is putting together an organization to take Purple Heart combat wounded guys out to do some fishing and hunting. Would you be interested?" And I said, "Sure." And the rest is history. I think you gave me a call. We talked a little bit, and we made plans to head out to Florida for, I think it might have been the first gator hunt.
It was the first gator hunt.
Well, I think it was the second one. There was one before us, but definitely the first year that it was happening.
Yeah, I think the first one I did a solo with Vic Dominguez.
Yeah, and he was in my unit as well.
Yeah, and there's three of you, and I know all 3 of you personally because of Art, like you mentioned, Art Kandarian, Colonel Art Kandarian, who at the time was battalion commander,
Yes.
commanding a troop, right? The 1st Squadron, 32nd Cavalry Regiment in the 101st Airborne. Was that a RISTA unit?
Yes.
Reconnaissance. The Army was experimenting for a while there, taking with different types of equipment and different types of configuration. And lash ups between units. I don't know if they're still doing that or not, but you were with you worked with Art. Art was your battalion commander, and then you had those three. Vic Dominguez, of course, what a great American. Was that all? And then Brad Alexander.
Yep.
All three of you have Purple Hearts. Of course, Vic, God bless him. I still think very highly of him. He was one of the first guys I ever served. It was back when I was doing solo missions. He and we linked up in the Florida Keys. I'll just never forget, watching Vic with 85% of his body with 3rd-degree burns trying to put on a wetsuit. To this day, it just almost brings me to my knees. Anyway, so yeah, it's crazy how all these things happen. And so we go on this alligator hunt, and I think everybody killed alligators, but back then they were kind of small.
Yeah, I think the biggest one we got was 6 feet, and the one that I harvested was about 3 feet and some inches.
Yeah. But still, nonetheless, pretty well. Were all three of you guys, Vic, Brad, and yourself, were they separate incidences, or when you got wounded, were they separate instances, or were they all part of one and the same?
Vic was hurt before Brad and I on a mission, and Brad and I were together. We were in the same platoon. I was platoon sergeant. He was one of my section sergeants, and we were wounded at the same time.
Yeah. If you don't mind, you shared that story with me many years ago, and I just remember it having a major impact. And if you would be so kind to tell us that story.
Yeah, no problem. I used to tell my story for a living back when I worked at Raytheon in Tucson. So
yeah, I remember that.
It was during our right seat ride. We were getting ready to come home, and we were showing the unit that was taken over for us. I had their company XO with me. We went into McDaniel. That's where we were, the town that we were charged with patrolling and all that good stuff. And we had gone out to introduce the XO to the local leadership. And, I can't remember exactly everything that happened that morning, but we did go out. We did talk to the Mukhtars and the Imams and stuff like that. Got a good feel for the area. I was always really big with my guys to always be alert, don't get complacent. And my biggest thing was you just never know when something might happen. It might happen the first day, it might happen the last day, and it could happen any day in between. So, yeah, the patrol went well. We were heading back to the FOB, and we got to this crucial intersection, and the local population had just dispersed very quickly, which was a telltale sign something was up. So I had the patrol halted. We did have an Iraqi platoon with us who were somewhat squared away. They were pretty good. We were in the implementation phase, so we would kind of hold back and supervise as they're doing all the groundwork. So I had them set up a hasty traffic control point, search the intersection for any IEDs or suspicious activity. They were conducting the TCP. They pulled over a vehicle, had 2 males in it. Both had sidearms. They claimed to be Iraqi police. So they called me over. I told them, you can have your weapons back if I see proof that you're Iraqi police. They said they left their ID cards over at the IP station, which was just a couple blocks away. I said, okay, you go get them and show the proof to me and my guys, and we'll let you on your way with your sidearms. And they looked squared away. They didn't look suspicious or anything like that. So about 5 minutes had passed, and I'm like, okay, something's up, because it shouldn't have been taking them this long. And that's when my spidey sense went off and said, we've been set up. And right as I thought that, everything went black. So what had happened, my gunner, Sergeant Nathan Ranke, he was on top of the gun on the gun truck, and he had noticed a female in the black traditional dress come walking towards him. And at this time, the whole time we were in Iraq, we weren't directly allowed to interact with the female population because of the cultural stuff that's going on with the interaction between American men and Iraqi women. And but he noticed that she was walking up like she was going to come and ask a question, which was, that's happened before. If a woman approaches us and asks a question, of course we're going to engage. So he was watching her walk up, and then as everything went black for me, this woman blew herself up and detonated suicide vest that she was wearing. So I get the next part of the story from the guys that were on the ground from my platoon. So the blast had detonated about 5 feet from behind me and to my right. She definitely knew who the target was. You go after the person that's given all the orders. So I was hit with the blast. The XO that was with us was hit with the blast. Sergeant Alexander was hit with the blast. Sergeant Kate and Specialist Ramirez were also hit by the blast. I was just given the order to wrap the patrol up when this happened, because I knew something was going down. So that's why I had the leadership with me. And pretty good coordinated attack on their end. As soon as she detonated, they hit us with small arms fire. So the next thing I remember is like Saving Private Ryan, when he's storming the beaches and he gets hit by or the mortar round or the artillery shell hits by him and it knocks him down, and it's completely quiet. And I knew something had happened, and internally I'm saying, okay, I just got shot by a sniper. Something bad happened. I'm not a real religious guy, but as the old saying goes, when you're in a foxhole and you're deep in the stuff, there's no such thing as an atheist. So I'm sitting there telling God, like, just take care of my family, take care of my children, because at the time I had 2 small daughters and a preteen. And that's the only thing I could think of. But then, like on Saving Private Ryan, that big whooshing noise came. It just whoosh, like that, and all of a sudden I'm hearing AK-47 rounds pinging off the asphalt next to my head, next to my body. I just hear chaos, and I'm yelling for Sergeant Ranke. He told me the rest of the story after that. He jumped to the ground. He saw me laying there. Came up, pulled me back into from fire, cover from fire, enemy fire, and he said he was giving me the quick assessment of what happened to me injury wise. He took my Mitch helmet off, and when he took it off, he said that he just couldn't believe what he was seeing, and a piece of shrapnel had gone through the back of my helmet. And went through my skull and lodged in the top of my brain. And he said there was, literally a brain bucket. So that was pretty, but I don't remember any of this. I just remember yelling for him to come and get me. I remember him telling me that everything is going to be fine. We had our 3rd platoon who had just left on their mission, who on the way to their wherever they were going to, they heard the blast and then heard the radio traffic, and they soon got there to provide support to defeat the enemy. So
Were you on the ground?
Yes.
Were you dismounted when all this
we
happened?
were all dismounted, except for the gunners. They were all, and thank goodness they were up and where they were supposed to be and all that good stuff, because once that blast went off and then they got us all behind cover into a casualty collection point, my team knew exactly what to do, and that was defeat the enemy. And
Right.
they returned fire. I could hear the fight going on. I could hear, this is just pure chaos. I had no sense except for hearing. I couldn't smell, I couldn't see, couldn't taste, couldn't feel anything. And that's probably for the best, considering the injuries that I sustained. And I didn't, and my men sustained as well. The last thing you want to do or see over there is your own guys beat up pretty bad. So,
yeah. Wow. How far? What do you think the distance was from the female suicide bomber to you when she detonated, when she blew herself up?
Sergeant Ranke said it was about 5 to 6 feet.
Oh my God.
And fast forward a little bit, when I was recovering at Walter Reed in Bethesda Naval Hospital, I was doing some work for JIDO, the Joint IED Defeat Organization. And my boss just happened to be a Cav Scout too, and we knew each other. And he went in and looked up the report from JIDO, and they said that after they did their forensic investigation, they determined that the female suicide bomber, who was in fact the first case of a female suicide bomber in Iraq, so I don't know if that's the thing to be proud of, be the test bed for that. So that she had the vest on backwards or inside out, where the bulk of the blast went into her. I mean, we still got banged up pretty bad, but they said that saved our lives. That whoever, or whether it was her or whoever put that vest on her, screwed it up. And I'm eternally thankful that they did.
Inshallah, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
It was, wow. I guess it was full of ball bearings. The shrapnel that I received that periodically was coming out of me the next couple of years was mostly asphalt. I'm sure there was pieces. I have 2 big pieces still above both knees that it might come out years from now. Who knows? It does show up on an MRI, but it's not metal. So I'm presume it's either asphalt or bone from the suicide bomber. So, so they got us all in the casualty collection point. I'm still trying to give orders at this time to Sergeant Ranke, and God bless him, and Adam Turcott, who was a specialist at that time, and 2 really good, great soldiers, and they took charge because Sergeant Alexander was out of the fight, and the third in command, Sergeant Kate, was taken out of the fight, and Specialist Kate, he was one of my dismounts. He was a truck commander. He was technically the third in command. We were all taken out of the fight. So Sergeant Ranke, who was just newly promoted to buck sergeant, took control, and him and Turcott were both awarded the Bronze Star for valor, and rightfully so, because one of the other biggest things I always harped on was contingency planning and making sure that my guys, whether you're the brand new private in the platoon or you're the seasoned platoon sergeant or the lieutenant, that everybody's a leader and you might have to take over. And this was a textbook case of that. And I remember my old platoon sergeant in the 82nd Airborne Division, the former SEAC, John Wayne Troxel, drilled that into us as a young paratrooper, and it never left me. And I thank him and I thank God every day that I knew about contingency planning, because those 2 outstanding 19 Delta Cav Scouts from the 101st Airborne Division took charge and defeated the enemy, got us on the casual collection point, and got the medevac there, and got us to where we needed to go for follow-up care. We all did survive. Sergeant Alexander and I both, we were all evac to Balad, the Air Force Trauma Center. It was told to me that both of us had passed away on the operating table. They brought us back. I don't really have any recollection of any of that stuff. The next thing I remember is I'm waking up and I don't have a clue what happened still. I just wake up and my memory is just of this female looking at me with short curly hair, a little bit older, probably in her 40s, and the distinctive chaplain symbol on her uniform. And of course, I start freaking out, like, am I getting my last rites here? I had no idea what was going on, but she was like, no, you're fine. You're fine. You're embolized. You're receiving treatment. They didn't tell me what happened. She said, I got this Iridium phone, satellite phone. I need you to call somebody back home and tell them that you're okay. And like, I wasn't feeling any pain. This is just they must have brought me out of a coma, medical coma, and then put me right back into it afterwards. But the only number I could remember, and I remember doing this, was calling my dad, who lives in New Brunswick, Canada, right beside Maine. And he had received the call earlier that day that I was severely wounded and that he had to get his passport ready because it wasn't looking good. And he was probably coming to claim his son in Germany. So you can imagine his state of mind.
Wow.
So I call, it's like 2:00 in the morning here and where he's at. And his heart just stops because he's like, oh, here's the Army calling me and let me know my son's passed away. He tells the story. Well, he used to tell it to everybody, and he tells the story, and he's like, I got this call, my heart stopped. I knew the Army was calling me for give me the bad news, and all of a sudden he hears his son's like, hey, Dad, what's up? Just like it was nothing had happened. And I'm like, that's pretty much what I said. Hey, Dad, I'm fine. They told me to give you a call. I got a Purple Heart, and it's definitely not worth it. Well, I hadn't received any Purple Heart at that point, but just common sense kicked in. Like, of course, I was hurt, but I still had no idea. And they put me back in a coma. The next thing I remember, I'm coming off this airplane, probably a C-130 or a C-17 or something, and I'm being rolled off this plane. And then I remember being in this medical room, and it's just, I thought I was dreaming, because next thing I know, my old first sergeant from the 82nd Airborne Division is sitting there talking to me. And I'm like, because I had no idea. I thought probably I was hallucinating or dreaming, but it really did happen. Sergeant Major Blackwood, Roger Blackwood at the time, was Ironside 7. So he was Sergeant Major of 1st Armored Division in Germany. He had found out from my Sergeant Major, Paul, that we had been severely wounded and on our way to Landstuhl. And so he came and escorted me and my men off the plane and was there. And I remember him talking to me and saying, is there anything that you need? And I said, look, the only thing I need, Sergeant Major, is for you to find Sergeant Alexander and tell him how proud you are, because we both served under, he was my first sergeant in the 82nd, but he was also our regimental sergeant major with 2nd Armored Cavalry Regiment during my first tour in Iraq. And I told him, I said, if you can present his Purple Heart to him, that would mean the world to him. So he came back and told me he did that. And and then when I was in Bethesda, the Naval Hospital, I remember when I finally got to use the computer, check my email. I had no idea, but he sent me a picture of him standing next to me, and I'm in this bed. It says Duplisea on the back of the whiteboard, and it says craniotomy or something to do with my brain. But then he had pinned my Purple Heart, unofficial one, on my pillow, and I had no idea that he did that. So so I mean, cool. So just, you just never know who you run into. The U.S. Army and the military, it's a small population, but it's still pretty huge.
That's true.
So that was definitely a morale booster when I saw that picture. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. The first ground zero, and then the first week or two, then I end up flying into was it Wright Patterson? That's in DC? No, that's not DC. Whatever the big Air Force base is in the DC area. And I woke up in the hospital in Bethesda, and I had no clue where I was. I was just completely, I was in this bed. This is the first time I could feel pain. It wasn't very bad in the beginning, but then it suddenly got worse. But there was a nurse in my room, and I'm like, she sees me wake up. She said, I said, where am I? She goes, you're in Bethesda. And I just couldn't compute it. And I'm like, oh, I'm still in Iraq? She goes, no, you're in Bethesda, Maryland, and you're at the National Naval Medical Center. And I'm like, Navy? I'm in the Army. Why am I in a damn Navy hospital? And she starts laughing, and she goes, no. So, before when you're just a frontline guy and you get hurt, you don't know anything about the medical system of the United States military.
No.
So she was like, oh, no, you have a very bad brain injury, which we call it a severe traumatic brain injury. And this is the military hospital that treats this. And I'm like, oh, and then she gave me a mirror, and I was looking at it, kind of had like a cone head. She showed me where the shrapnel went in, and she was telling me how they pulled the shrapnel out and all this other stuff. And that was literally the first time I broke down and cried, because I couldn't move my body. My right arm was in this weird contraption. My right leg was immobilized because the femur had been snapped in half, and they put a rod in there in Germany. So basically in Germany, they just stabilized all the injuries and then sent me stateside. And yeah, just crazy.
Wow. What? That's an amazing story. It's obviously so tragic, but it's also so inspirational that you and your teammates would have gone through so much, and there's just so much violence and horror in that moment. And here we are almost 20 years later, and we're friends, and we've spent a fair amount of time together, and I look at you and I don't see any of that. I don't see any of that. I never did. Of course, you look to me like just a perfectly, well put together, in shape, handsome man, and you don't see any of that. And thank God you made it through that, and your teammates, made it through that. And I mean, what a testament to human, resiliency. And it's just incredible. I really appreciate you sharing that story with us, Derek. It's amazing that you made it through, and all that you've done since then. I mean, you've done quite a bit too. I was just, reviewing your dossier, and I remember, you telling me the story that before you joined the United States Army, I mean, you're like you have like dual citizenship, right? Which you're also, were you born in Canada, right?
No, I was actually born in the United States. My mom's American from Iowa, and my dad's from Canada.
There it is. But you served in the Canadian military, right? You were an infantryman in the Canadian Army. Is that true?
That's absolutely true. I was born in Salt Lake City. 6 months later, my dad and my mom decided to move to back where he's from in New Brunswick, Canada. So for the first 22 years of my life, I was strictly a Canadian. I knew I had dual citizenship. I had a little thing that said I was born. I have a birth certificate from the United States. So, but I was, I was a true and not blue, but red and white Canuck. So, I was an Army cadet as a teenager from 12 to 17, and then I joined the Army Reserves as an infantryman and served in the B Company, 1st Battalion, Royal New Brunswick Regiment for 4 years. Most of that time was what we would say in the U.S. was active reserve or guard, and I supported a lot of cool stuff. Went to a lot of courses and did a couple of deployments within Canada and did some really cool stuff. And I learned a lot, and I really do believe that set the base or the cornerstone for my military career. The Canadian military is very small, and they rely a lot. The regular force they rely a lot on the reserves to fill the ranks when they need them. So I did a few stints with 2nd Battalion Royal Canadian Regiment, which was in CFB Gagetown, which it's next to where I grew up in New Brunswick. So yeah, it's I had a blast, and it was a great time, and I just decided one day that I had to find something different. And one of my sergeants, he was in the old parachute regiment in Canada, and he's like, "Hey, you're born in the United States. Why don't you go check out the U.S. military?" And I was like, I didn't even thought about it before. And so I said, okay. So me and a couple of my buddies, we drove to Calais, where we kind of live now. Calais is about 10 miles north of Robinson. It's the border town between New Brunswick and Maine. And at that time, they had Army recruiter, they had a Marine recruiter, and I think it was Navy. And I walked into the Marine Corps, and that guy I was like, wow, everything you ever read or saw about Marines was 100% true. And I said, these guys are way too uptight for me.
Wound a little too tight.
Yeah.
God bless.
So I was like, you guys have nice uniforms, but no, this isn't for me. And I walked over to the Army, funny. And this was September of 1990 or August of 93. And so I was 22 years old, and he was pretty cool. He said, "Oh, hey, how's it going?" He said, "Oh, you got 3 guys coming to join the Army today." And my buddy's like, "No, this one guy, he's a dual citizen." And so he asked me all this stuff and asked me if I had a social security number. And I said, "No, I'm Canadian, but I was born in the U.S." So, after I became a recruiter too, probably the low point of my career, but I did learn a lot. I was successful, but I didn't. Every minute of 3 years, I hated it. So he got me qualified. He gave me some practice ASVAB, and I scored well. And he told me I had to go up to Presque Isle, Maine, to get my social security number. And my mom drove me up there, and we got it. And went down to MEPS in Portland, Maine, and man, I was hell bent on getting in my contract. Infantry with the Ranger option and go right to a Ranger battalion. But, they were like, "Oh, we don't have any slots." And I said, "What about infantry going into the 82nd Airborne Division?" "Oh, we don't have any slots." And I'm like, "Oh," I said, "Medic? You got any medic jobs?" "Oh, don't have any slots." I said, "Okay, what do you have?"
Yeah, this is how they do that. They have a critical shortage, and it's called 19 deltas at the time, I bet.
Well, I said, "What do you have that's going to the Ranger bat?" He goes, "Cook." And I'm like, no, I don't care if I'm a Ranger. I'm not going to be a cook. He said, then he said, airborne option. There was 13 Bravo or 11 Delta or 19 Delta. And I was like, oh. Told me one was the 13 series was artillery, and I said, no, I'm doing that either. So I said, tell me about this Cavalry Scout, because in the Canadian Army we don't have the word cavalry; it's just recon or recce. And so he goes, well, he showed me, brought out this big laser disc thing, stuck it in the machine, and showed these 19 Delta Cavalry Scouts riding dune buggies and like dirt bikes and they're just
with parachutes on their
oh
back.
yeah, and all this stuff. And I'm like, and you're like, of course, he's like, oh yeah, that's elite.
Cool.
And this recruiter, he actually was a Marine before, in Vietnam. He was a Vietnam veteran, and so so he was a 13 bang bang or red leg, whatever they call themselves. And so he was telling me about that, and then showed me that video 19 Delta, and I said, oh, can I get guaranteed airborne school and 82nd Airborne Division at Fort Bragg? He goes, well, you just tell that to the guy down in MEPS when you go.
Yeah, right.
So I went down to MEPS, and make a long story short, I told them exactly what I wanted, and they put it in the contract, which in the Canadian Armed Forces, I mean, when you go to join, they put you wherever they want you, and not necessarily just the Army. You're open to the Air Force and the Navy as well. So, that's how that was in September. In December, I shipped off to Fort Knox, 4 months of 19 Delta reconnaissance specialist training. Graduated that in May or April of that year, 94. Straight to Fort Benning for airborne school, graduated that, and then straight up to Fort Bragg. And being part of the 82nd and wearing that maroon beret was one of the things I've always wanted to do, whether it was Canadian military or Canadian Army or U.S. Army. And so I made that happen. And one of the cool facts is when I was in the 82nd, I went down to me or my buddy, I can't really remember, but we went down, we found out where the Canadian Army airborne liaison guy was. And we went down and said, what are the chances of us going to Canadian Airborne School up in Edmonton, Alberta? And he was like, when do you want to go? And I'm like, is that easy? And he goes, yeah, if your commander approves it. So we went back, talked to our company commander, and he said, could I get a slot? And I said, I was like, I don't know. So 3 of us were approved to go, and we drove up together from Fort Bragg all the way up to Edmonton, Alberta in the dead of winter in March. And I remember we started the jump portion of the jump course, and it was St. Patrick's Day because they were giving us green beer. And so long story short, my goal, my one of my biggest thing was always become a Canadian paratrooper, and I had to join a foreign army to make it happen. So we did. I did 5 jumps, 2 jumps off the ramp on a C-130, which typically doesn't happen in the 82nd. So that was pretty cool. Jumping with snowshoes and rifles and winter camouflage and all this other stuff. So it was definitely a highlight of my career, and I look back on it with great memory and stuff like that. So, but yeah.
Wow. That's awesome, man. And then, I want to get to a couple of the things here. And I appreciate you being generous with your time. But you also are a guide. You've been through the WWIA guide school, and you've been, when we have a hard mission, something that's non-standard, that I am, concerned about, who's the right person to put into this, challenging event or this challenging scenario that's non-standard, meaning it's not our typical type mission. You're always the first person that comes to mind, because if you look at your career and what's happened to you and who you are at your essence, you've dealt with a lot of adversity, a lot of complexity. And so obviously I think you can handle anything. So we've put you on a lot of missions, and you've been very, very successful. So you are serving as a WWIA guide. You've been to our guide school. You're out there giving back. If you don't mind, tell us what that space means to you, the foundation and our work. And in your own words, what kind of impact does that, have on you as a leader in that space?
Well, it kind of all starts back with Art introducing me to you. And think maybe in his head he was like, oh, maybe there's some future plans for Derek here, to continue his service, but on a different level with combat wounded veterans. I know that you had asked me to be an associate pretty early in the game, so it was probably about 2010 when I was working at Raytheon as their wounded warrior liaison. And then I went to work for another big nonprofit and kind of took some time off after that. But after that gig, I decided to take some time for myself because I went right from the Army and jumped right in like most of us think we're invincible. And at this time, I was like, whoa, I need to slow down. I need some time to readjust, figure things out. I had right after I got hurt, I graduated with my bachelor's degree. Then right after I retired, got my master's degree, and I was trying to figure things out. Like it's pretty hard when you go from a high speed, fast paced job as a line unit guy, a front line, Cav Scout, airborne, all that air assault, and then sit at a desk. Or I wasn't really sitting at a desk, but it wasn't the same type of job. So when you had asked me in 2016, I think I had just taken a job with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, National Wildlife Refuge up in Alaska to do polar bear stuff. And you had asked me if I wanted to go to the inaugural guide school when I got back in 2017. And I don't know if I have the dates right, but the story's the same. But my question was like, why do you want me to be a guide? Like, I'm not anywhere. So when I got to guide school, I'm there with the likes of, all these outstanding guys that live and breathe hunting and fishing. And I'm a guy that I was doing it as just like a hobby at best. And your exact words were because you're of leadership. And, that meant a lot to me. The word empowerment comes in, and you made an old crusty 19 Delta combat wounded guy feel on top of the world. So we had the discussion, and went to guy school, and it was pretty awesome. It was good being with like-minded guys, and I say guys because they were all guys at that time. And it was very empowering. It still is empowering. I know I took some time off this year to get myself back into a good mental state, and stuff that happened, and my mother passing away, and a whole bunch of other, and my grandson being born. But you guys sent me, I think right after I finished guy school, I went up to Winnipeg, Canada or it was actually about 2 or 3 hours north of Winnipeg, to do a one-off black bear hunt with a young wounded Marine. And wow, that was quite the adventure. And we were there for a week, and we harvested that humongous bear the first day. So we were just kind of like deckhands the rest of the time, and we had a blast. And ever since then, all the opportunities. I was kind of focused more on fishing, and then I asked to do some more hunting type stuff, and from muskie to black bear to you name it.
You had a turkey hunt. Didn't you get a turkey hunt and a deer hunt?
I've done them all. The one in Virginia, shotgun or running dogs after deer and shooting it with a shotgun. Right. Well, this deer, I'm like, there's no way I'm going to be able to do that. And this last day of the hunt, I hear the dogs coming, and I see this buck bounding towards me. I'm like, and I have limitations on my right arm, and to this day, I'm like, I don't know how I killed that buck, but it went down, and it was a nice buck. So and then the black bear hunts here in New Hampshire, I've done that a couple of times, and I'm still the record holder for the biggest black bear there. It's all just luck. I wish my goal is always have the heroes try to harvest it, but when they put you out there and you're by yourself, and you have 3 bears coming to your stand, and then the big one finally comes in, I mean, I had to take it. So
yeah. Well, and the other thing that's amazing is you're working in the mental health arena, aren't you? Tell us a little bit about that. I mean, you got an incredible story, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, so we moved to Maine, and where we live in Maine is pretty well, like everywhere in Maine, it's pretty rural. There's not much job opportunities like the jobs I held previously after I retired from the Army. So I went to work when I first got here for a place called a Rustic Mental Health Center. At that time, I was a children's crisis counselor. So kids from 5 years old to 17 that are going through any type of mental health crisis in Maine, if they came to our agency, that we would provide mental health services, and they could be there from usually it's a crisis stabilization unit, so 3 to 5 days, but sometimes that goes into months. So that was challenging, dealing with children that have a whole host of anything from maybe they just had a PTSD from that, or neglect, or even worse. So we got to see the whole gambit. I did that for about half a year. Then I took the manager position that oversaw the kids crisis unit and the kids residential unit. I did that for another 6 months, and then I said, okay, I need a break from this. I think I've retired about 6 times since I retired from the Army. So I take some time, and then I get bored, and I'm like, okay, I got to go back to work. So presently, I went back to work for AMHC, and about 2 years ago, and now I'm the manager for their adult crisis stabilization unit. So adults that are going through any type of mental health crisis, whether it be, I mean, the big three are depression, anxiety, and PTSD, but it can go into schizoaffective disorder or anything mental health related. So, and usually it's co-occurring with substance use and stuff like that. So it's a very rewarding job when you have people come in and then you see the difference we're making. Sometimes they're in and out, sometimes they're there for a little bit longer, but I manage a team of 13 counselors. And one therapist, and I'm the manager. So we've been rocking and rolling. We set the bar high. We in the state of Maine, I believe that we're the number one crisis unit when it comes to filling our beds. We make our monthly bonus every month. So, and that's all attributed to my military leadership and what I learned and setting standards and explaining the standards. And, you know, I don't lead like people think I'm retired. Sometimes I do come across as a retired NCO, only when I need to. But
sometimes you have to.
It's challenging sometimes. It's a whole different culture between civilian world but there is a happy medium in there. I think I found it. So,
well, super proud of you, man. I mean, the one thing that just jumps out at me every time I hear your story, and I haven't heard it. It's evolved considerably since the last time we chatted, but it's service. There's one word that I could say that sums you up. It's just service. You have this incredible thing inside of you that wants to help other people and serve, your country's plural, and humanity. It's amazing, man. I mean, you're quite an individual, buddy, and it's an honor to know you. And I certainly do appreciate all that you've done for our country, the foundation, and just all the lives that you touch throughout the day. It's quite impressive, and I appreciate you sharing your time with us. I also understand that you recently became a grandfather, right?
Yep. Just over almost 3 weeks ago, my youngest daughter gave birth to a healthy baby boy. His name is Grayson Lauren Brian Coda, and I just saw him a couple days ago. And yeah, that's a great feeling. It's kind of a weird feeling. I'm like old now, so but yeah, it was just to hold him and yeah, and I can't wait to spoil him, because I remember my grandparents, and they spoiled me rotten, but they also were a huge influence on who I became as a as a person. And
Right.
now this is what gets me teared up now. So I miss my grandmother more than anybody. My grandfather, who served in the same unit I did in the Canadian Army, and he was wounded overseas. And weird fact, we have the exact same injury in our right arm. He couldn't. Yeah, just wild. And I could have sworn I saw him when I was in the hospital, but maybe that was the good drugs they gave me. But
and there's something special about all of it, buddy. That's crazy. Well, I'll give you the last whack at the piñata. If you've got anything else you'd like to share with us, I will say in closing, before I turn the mic back over to you, thanks again for everything that you've done. That's an incredible story, man, and I appreciate you sharing it. I'm sure that our listening audience will really enjoy hearing your story as well. But thank you. So, any saved rounds you got there, Scout?
Just want to give a big shout out to you and Karina and David and the rest of the crew up there. You guys, anything I need, you guys have sent me or given to me. It's cool getting the little gifts every now and then. Another big shout out to my fellow Purple Heart hero here in Maine, Dan and his wife Katie and their son Hunter.
They're great Americans.
I haven't seen them lately, but I still keep in contact with them, and I hope they listen to this and know that they're always in my heart. So it's good to have Dan next to if I do need. We did go on an event a couple of years ago. We went to Maryland with and did some duck and stuff and goose, and we harvest some of that stuff, and that was awesome. I'm glad we went together, so we had a great time.
Yeah.
But thanks for everything you've done for me, John, from the bottom. I know I've thanked you a billion times, and I'll probably thank you a billion more times. If it wasn't for you, I could have ended up a different person. So,
well, I just don't know what to say about that, but thanks for saying that. I guess we've got an amazing team. They're all here pulling for you guys. And then when we see somebody like you who's just a shining star, it's so humbling, to see how far you've come given so much adversity. And we're all very, very proud of you. You keep doing the great work. We appreciate your leadership, and you're an inspiration to many, and myself included. So God bless you, and thanks for spending some time with us, Derek.
Thank you, John. Just I should give a big, huge shout out to my wife, Andrea, who has put up with me for a long time now. And it's God bless her. And because there's times when, the demons do come back. And if it wasn't for her, then, and people like you and my other support systems, and there are a lot of people out there that go out of their way to make sure that we're taken care of.
Yeah. Well, you got to take time for yourself, especially when you're so giving. It's important, and if you're always on mission, you're not spending enough time on yourself. Then eventually it wears on you. So
if I'd give that advice to anybody, it's okay to take a knee.
You got to take a knee, face out, drink some water, as they say.
A couple Motrin water, and then you can carry on with the mission.
Okay. Drive on, Ranger. All right, buddy. God bless you. Have a great day. Thank you again so much. I know everybody's going to love to listen to this, and we'll send it out to everybody once we got her all wrapped up.
All righty.
All right, pal. Have a great day. Thanks for your time.
Airborne all the way.
All the way. Scouts out.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the WWIA podcast. To learn more about the Wounded Warriors in Action Foundation and how you can get involved, please visit our website at wwiaf.org or follow us on social media on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. If you'd like to comment or offer feedback about our podcast, or if you have a suggestion for a future episode, please email us at podcast@wwiaf.org. Thank you for your support and for helping us honor, connect, and heal our combat wounded Purple Heart heroes through the power of the great outdoors.